I didn't, start any wars with anybody. But you're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I promise this is not a traffic analysis show. This is, in fact, a sports show. We talk sports, both local and abroad. Okay, and we try and keep it local here. Never afraid to talk SEC football. Any time of the year, we will throw it down. And there is some SEC football talk today on the show, as well as some SEC basketball talk. We've got a lot of things in flux. The SEC commissioner had some words for Jim Harbaugh, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, platforms. Always got to go through the platforms. Where can you find us? Apart from on your radio dials, AM 1240, you can find us at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. And you can find us on the TuneIn Radio app. This is very important because you can have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere. Just download the app for free in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store directly to your mobile device. Search Hot News Talk Radio, give us a follow, and press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So Jim Harbaugh has upset the SEC just in general. Okay, and the SEC commissioner came out today to talk about Jim Harbaugh and his crazy plans for teenagers' spring breaks, because Jim Harbaugh and the teenagers go hand in hand, apparently. So Jim Harbaugh wants to have a spring break practice in Florida, and SEC commissioner is upset, as I think it's obvious he should be. Okay, and I'm not the only person out here saying this. I don't know who else is. I didn't look up anybody, but the SEC commissioner was clearly bristled, okay, by the fact that anyone dare think that he wants to stop Jim Harbaugh from having his spring break practices because he thinks that Jim Harbaugh is coming down here to recruit. He doesn't want anybody to think that. That's not the case, he said. Okay? And Jim Harbaugh had a tweet yesterday because the SEC was making a big stink about a spring break practice in Florida. And Jim Harbaugh tweeted, in the way that people do on social media, with that kind of smug, arrogant, you want to punch him in the face kind of tweet or Facebook post. Does anybody else find whining attractive? I don't. Okay, Jim. Thanks. So he lobs that one out there. SEC commissioner would like everybody to know that he doesn't want to get into a social media war with Jim Harbaugh, which is actually one of the smart things that he said today, because that's a bad idea. Jim Harbaugh will kick your butt in a social media war, I think. He's in tune with the kids, man. He's in tune with the young people. He knows how the social media works. He's figured that out, and he's incorporated that into recruiting. That's why he was so successful this year. The SEC does not want Jim Harbaugh down during spring break practicing in Florida because they don't like the idea of Jim Harbaugh recruiting. I don't care what the SEC commissioner said. He said that's not the case. But here's the thing. Who is he worried about? Who is he worried about then? Is he worried about the kids, that the kids should have their spring break? Is that what it is? Because nobody is that nice. And nobody in college athletics is that nice. Otherwise, these kids would be paid already. Nobody is that nice. So who is it that he's worried about? Who is it that he's trying to protect? Is he trying to protect the kids? Can't be. Cannot be that he's trying to protect the kids. That's not his number one concern. And I'll tell you, I have a few reasons why. Reason number one, Jim Harbaugh wants to have spring break practices in basically the SEC's backyard. If this is an issue that everybody should be worried about, that everybody should be all up in arms about, all charged up for, where's the Pac-12 commissioner? Where's the ACC commissioner? Where's the Big 12 commissioner? If this is such a huge advantage and sets such a terrible precedent for schools, where's the Big Ten commissioner from Jim's own conference? The only place that stands to lose anything is the SEC. And how we know this is, and I posted the map up on Facebook. You can go through on the Hot News Talk Radio Facebook page and find it. The map that shows that most recruits to college athletics, they come from the South. They come from the South. Florida's a factory. Texas is a factory. Alabama's a factory for high school recruits. It just is. California is a factory too, but if Jim Harbaugh had said we're going to California, maybe the Pac-12 would be all up in arms. But he didn't say that. He said we're going to Florida. And the Pac-12 doesn't have as much to lose here as the SEC does. You don't want Jim Harbaugh coming in your backyard farming for your kids. That is a natural resource, okay? That is the natural advantage of Southern schools. The reason why Southern schools recruit so well and dominate so well is because all the high school talent is also here. Okay, Notre Dame, if they want to get a good recruiting class, Michigan State, Ohio State, anybody, heck, even Syracuse, anybody wants to get a good recruiting class, they have to come down here. And it's hard to convince a lot of young men who grew up watching Tennessee and who grew up watching Georgia and who grew up watching Alabama to go to some school in the Northwest. It's hard to convince that kid to just go to Oregon. If he's not recruited down here, he may go. But ultimately, the SEC has their first pick of the litter. They have the most to lose. That's why I don't buy that this is not an issue of recruiting. It certainly is. Okay? It's the same thing with the Watergate scandal. You had Woodward and Bernstein talking to their anonymous source who they nicknamed Deep Throat, and what did he say? He said, follow the money. Watch All the President's Men. It's a good movie. Follow the money. The solution is almost always financial, especially when it comes to college sports. You're looking at a sport where the coaches are making millions. The schools are making millions. The TV networks are making billions. There's no way this is not about recruiting. That doesn't make any sense at all. So that's reason number one of my doubting there. It's just huge. My second reason, of course, that I doubt that this has got nothing to do with recruiting is why go to the media about this? Why not take it directly to the Big Ten commissioner himself? Like, if you think that this is unethical, you think this is wrong, why no dialogue between the Big Ten commissioner and you? Why aren't more people agreeing with this? Like, why aren't more people against this? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And he really wants us to believe that. Which I don't understand at all. I find that very difficult to believe. I'm not buying it. Okay. I'm not going to say it's a dire situation, but I'm telling you, I don't believe it.
I'm not having it.
Not having it. I do not buy it.
I'm not having it.
I'm just not. Okay. There's something that stinks here, and I'm not a super sleuth, okay? I did go to school for journalism. I don't think I'm a terrible journalist, but I'm not an investigative journalist, okay? I'm not Anderson Cooper. I'm not knocking down your door to get some answers. All right? That's not me. Okay, this isn't Meet the Press. I don't have that bulldog mentality inside me. I don't have it. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, also the home of NASCAR here in Chattanooga. And by the way, we're going to have NASCAR talk next week. All right. My buddy Sam Blevins is going to come on the air here and break down this upcoming race from this weekend, the Bud Shootout. They changed the name of it. I don't remember what the new name is, but we're going to talk about that, break that down, start to hype up Daytona. It's coming back, and it's going to be a great NASCAR season, and it's going to be interesting to see who fills in superstar voids. You know, Jeff Gordon's gone directly from driving directly into the broadcast booth. So it's going to be interesting to see Jeff Gordon as a broadcaster. It's going to be a good season. I'm excited about that. And you're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. And I found some more Super Bowl things to talk about. I know. It's Thursday. And news cycles run a lot quicker than this. I'm running out of Super Bowl bullets, to be fair. There will come a point in time where I just don't have Super Bowl bullets. I do have more Cam Newton bullets in the chamber, but what I've decided to do is not fire any of those, because why? What would be the point? Also, the NFL released the Super Bowl on their YouTube channel mic'd up. So you can hear the big game, all the highlights from the Super Bowl, but with a microphone attached to everybody, so you can hear what Peyton and Cam were talking about at the end of the game. You can hear what Peyton was saying. You could hear what Gary Kubiak was saying. When the Broncos were offsides on the Panthers' missed field goal, for instance, Gary Kubiak said, "Oh, we're offsides," which is a call that the officials totally blew. They didn't call him offsides. He was obviously offsides. He jumped way too early. He did get that running start that can sometimes be deceiving. Like, you have to watch a play 5 or 6 times before you go, okay, yeah, no, he really was offsides. He didn't time that well. But that was pretty telling. And Peyton Manning, of course, he's doing the post-Super Bowl rounds. He was on Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy Fallon had Magic Johnson on the show. And it's funny because Magic Johnson basically spent his time on the stage trying to recruit Peyton Manning to be an LA Ram. And wouldn't that be weird? Because the general consensus is, if Peyton Manning were to come back, he wouldn't be a Denver Bronco. The Broncos are not shelling out that coin for Peyton Manning, who would next season be 40. Okay, we're just not willing to give that money to a 40-year-old. Not giving that money to a 40-year-old. I mean, it's too much, man. And the Broncos need to re-sign that defensive unit. You need as much money as humanly possible to keep all of those guys together. Okay? You have to. Peyton Manning had terrible stats in the Super Bowl. And it's interesting because here's the thing with those terrible numbers. It speaks to the argument about how history doesn't remember bad games at all. We only remember championships. Kobe Bryant and the Boston Celtics. Kobe Bryant wins that Game 7 to give the Lakers and give himself a 5th title and give the Lakers a championship for that season. Go back and look at that Game 7. Kobe played terrible. Just awful basketball. I mean, when you see a legend look like that, it's bad. And that wasn't even bad because he's old. It was just bad because it was bad. He just had a bad game, which happens. But the championship, we just remember the ring. Okay, so here is John Elway's last Super Bowl, 1998, and Peyton Manning's most recent Super Bowl, 2015. Here are the numbers for those guys in that game. Peyton Manning, 13 of 23. John Elway, 12 of 22. Peyton Manning, 141 yards. John Elway, 123. Peyton Manning, no touchdowns, 1 interception. John Elway, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Yards per attempt, Peyton Manning, 6 0.13. John Elway, 5.59. Quarterback rating, Peyton, 56.6. John Elway, 51.9. So all across the board, Peyton's numbers in his last Super Bowl are better than John Elway's numbers in his last Super Bowl. And the only thing we remember about John Elway, 2 rings. Sure, you can talk about the ones that he went to and lost. That'll be part of his legacy too. But ultimately, 2 rings. And we talk about Peyton Manning like this last Super Bowl isn't going to improve his legacy at all. We all saw how terrible he was. We're not going to remember in 10 years. We're not going to remember how bad he was at all. If we stop and think about it critically, yeah, okay. It's easy to drum up reasons why Peyton was awful. Like, okay, yeah, now he was really bad now that I think about it. But if you just think about Peyton Manning's legacy 10 years from now, 2 rings. And that's all that's going to matter. Okay? There's the reason why Joe Montana is considered a greater quarterback than Tom Brady right now for a lot of people, despite the fact that, boy, Tom's got better numbers because he's in a passing league and he's got 4 championships just like Joe, is that Joe was 4 for 4 in Super Bowls and Tom Brady is 4 for 6. What kind of nonsense is that? We don't remember the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls. You talk about the great teams of the 90s, they're mentioned eventually. Like, you got to mention the Cowboys first because of the back-to-back and they're just overall dominance with the triplets. But we don't really talk about the Bills. You know why? No rings. That's where that conversation ends. No rings. Never mind that they just got dominated by the NFC East, more or less, minus the Eagles. No rings. We're going to look at Dan Marino, and we think of Dan Marino as one of the greatest. We might think of Marino as the greatest if he had even one. We look at Dan Marino, and no rings. And I pound this drum regularly. I have to, because it seems like nobody is willing to talk about it, that ring counting as a metric of greatness is a terrible metric. It's dreadful. It tells you nothing. The numbers that the guys generate while they're playing, that Phillip Rivers and Tony Romo are 2 fantastic quarterbacks. And because neither of them have sniffed the Super Bowl, we're looking at guys that Romo might be in the Hall of Fame, but Rivers might miss it. But statistically, Rivers has got every right to be there as anybody else. You don't choose your coaches. You don't choose your defense. But we're going to look at Phillip Rivers. We're going to look at Tony Romo. No rings. And we do it harder for quarterbacks. We're harsher for quarterbacks. I mean, we look at Ben Roethlisberger. He's got 2 championships, and we forget that the first one was horrendous. That was unwatchable football, and the referees may have helped them win that championship. It's hard to watch. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. We'll be back with more SEC football and basketball next.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
What's going on?
Get a free $20 gas gift card.
Free.
That's right, a free $20 gas gift card. Just tell Rick at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road you heard the offer on Hot News Talk Radio. A $20 gas gift card for free. When you tell Rick you heard it on Hot News Talk Radio. Buy or sell 30 grams of gold or 10 ounces of silver and get a free $20 gas gift card. It's the Valentine's Day sale at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road. 60, 70, 80 50% off when you buy rings, pendants, bracelets, and necklaces. Cash, 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 and more cash when you sell all week. Buy, sell, trade at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road. Mention you heard this at Hot News Talk Radio and get a free $20 gas gift card. Free. Cash, cash, cash. This huge Valentine's Day sale's going on now. Don't miss it. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds Valentine's Day sale. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade show for your business and you need a very affordable venue. Are you looking for a place for your birthday gala or services to start up a church? Look no further than the Hidden Gem in Hickson. It's an overlooked, newly appointed reception hall right here in Hickson, Tennessee. Big space, small price. That's right, big space, small price. Call Mr. Chu and ask for a tour. 316-7388. That's 423-316-7388. He'll tell you a lot more about the venue. Rent this venue today. Just call 423-316-7388 and ask for Mr. Chu.
Hello, I'm Mike Little, candidate for criminal court judge with 25 years of criminal court experience, which makes me the most qualified candidate. The experience I have gained from handling over 4,000 cases in state and federal court has equipped me with the ability to be fair, impartial, and independent. As your next criminal court judge, I will focus on keeping Hamilton County safe. I view this position as a public service and will strive to improve the daily operation of the court. I humbly ask for your trust and vote in the March 1st Republican primary.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Little. Barry Abbott, Treasurer.
Lay your burdens down at the Woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door. The perfect gift for the perfect match. Surprise her with a Woodhouse gift card. Call us today at 423-443-4478 or visit us online at chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
A few more clouds rolling through the nighttime. Overnight lows into the upper 20s. For Friday, little patchy late snow possible north of Chattanooga. Otherwise, highs later on near 50. Turning breezy and colder, though, Friday night through Saturday, with highs on Saturday staying into the 30s. Stay toasty warm through this cold spell with Dodge City Ski Shop, featuring the largest selection of cold weather clothing around. From infants to adults, they have it all at Dodge City, East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A 60-year-old woman, Nancy Mason, is suing the county and the city for a combined $1.75 million after she says she was wrongfully tased for refusing to take off her earrings while being processed at a jail. The woman says that when she was tased, she fell down and broke her arm. She was taken to the hospital and then taken back to the jail for a mugshot. Chattanooga police say a woman's estranged husband tried to run her over while she was holding her young daughter. The victim reported having to run between cars to avoid being hit. She told police that the estranged husband kept trying to run her over even though she was holding her young child. The victim said that her husband had assaulted her many times in the past and no longer lived with her. He's been placed on $15,000 bond for aggravated assault and $10,000 bond for reckless endangerment. And principals in Hamilton County are saying that Part 1 of TN Ready testing should be cut due to the online system's failure. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
So in the news, ESPN actually rated the Atlanta Braves farm system number one Number one, which makes a ton of sense because of all of the additions and things that they've made there. Like they're really going after undeveloped talent and trying to develop it, which, you know, it's a good strategy. It's a good strategy. I just don't want to see anybody be like the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA, where you just keep going after young talent and developmental people and draft picks, and you don't actually develop them. You just keep trading them away for more and more assets, thus turning into the world's greatest pyramid scheme of sports athletes. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that that's what the Braves are in. I just want everyone on earth to avoid being that, because I don't know if you've watched the Atlanta Braves last year. Not fun. And that's not unlike the Sixers this season. Also not fun. Also not fun. It was bad. And the Braves could possibly get worse before they get better. I'm trying to get some help from SB Nation, one of their writers from their page Talking Chop, where they talk about the Atlanta Braves. I'd like to bring them on the show so we can talk about the Braves offseason. Get that one scheduled in. Also, coming up on the show next week, because this is the last episode of the week, next week is some NASCAR talk. Sam Blevins will join us and help us to break down everything NASCAR, including get us pumped up and hyped for the upcoming season of NASCAR. And remember, Hot News Talk Radio, we are the home of NASCAR in Chattanooga. So the SEC is fighting Jim Harbaugh. But while that's happening, the NCAA is willing to give a shot towards reviewing calls, especially targeting calls, because that's the big issue, from a neutral location, and have those calls possibly overturned, be able to be reviewed off-site. Now, they had 158 targeting calls, which is defensive player initiated helmet-to-helmet contact, and 158 of those last season, which is by far the most. That was a giant spike. Okay, and it's interesting to me that this is the strategy that we've chosen to use, because I don't know at what point we make football so heavy and so cumbersome that it buckles under its own weight and nobody wants to watch it anymore. And I only say that because I don't know that we need more replay in things. Now, if the off-site replaying is going to be quick, it's going to be effective, it's not going to take any longer than the replays usually would, then fine. I'm cool with that. What I'm not cool with, all right, is when we start to get into this place where more replay is supposed to make the game better. More replay does not make the game better. More replay makes the game take longer, and more replay doesn't help. It often doesn't help. Like, the targeting call is to be enforced for player safety, but what we're trying to do is find out whether some targeting calls are accidents and whether some targeting calls aren't, and it gets to be heavy, it gets to be cumbersome, and the more replay we add to football, the more replay we add to sports in general, but I think football probably leads the way in the most replay necessary in the sport. Okay, then probably basketball, then baseball. Basketball at least annoys you with replay in like the last 2 minutes of the game. And then that's when NBA games can be unbearable to watch, because in the last 2 minutes, there's a timeout every 13 seconds, and there's a billion replays, and the last 2 minutes of an NBA game takes like 5 years. This is football just generally. The game of football should not take anywhere near as long as it does, except we're always replaying stuff. And I don't know that adding more replay makes this better. In fact, I'm sure it doesn't. Adding more replay cannot make this better. And the helmet-to-helmet contact, I'm not anti-player safety. I want the guys playing out there, especially at the collegiate level, because they're not getting paid. I want them to be safer. Does this make the game safer, or are we replaying all of these calls to make sure that people don't get screwed in situations where a targeting call was incorrectly called? And you're trying to review these things to make sure you get it right, but you can't review every penalty. Okay, like you just can't. Penalties, you can't review penalties. You already review touchdowns and turnovers, and adding penalties to all of that. I mean, these games are going to take a million years, which is so crazy to me because that's the knock on baseball. The baseball takes forever to play, and that's why people don't watch baseball. That is such a double standard. We just like violence. Violence is what draws us to football, not tempo, because if it was tempo, we wouldn't watch football either. The amount of actual game time action in a football game is like 20 minutes. If you count the time that the guys are actually out there running, and it takes 3 hours and we're cool with it. I mean, football takes forever. We're just cool with football. We're just cool with the action of football. People don't collide in baseball. That's our problem. And it's insanity and it's madness to think that what people want is more replays. I understand coaches are never going to say no to reviews. Like, coaches want to get the call right the first time. And I understand that desire, but you cannot replay everything. Okay? It's what you trust the officials. And I'm forgetting the call right. I am. If this is not going to take much more time, if it's going to be about the same, but I don't see how it will be. They're going to be reviewing on an off-site location while the officials in the stadium are reviewing, and then the ultimate say goes to the person off-site. It's just unnecessarily complicated. I do not understand the purpose of such a thing. I don't know that we necessarily need to replay all the targeting calls. And there's so many things that we can do to enhance player safety in football that it seems to me that reviewing more replay does not fix this. Okay, you've got to start at the level of coaching players to do what you want them to do, and then at some point acknowledging that some of these hits aren't on purpose. Okay, they're just not. When you are moving at the speed at which, have you seen these Alabama Crimson Tide? When you're moving at that speed, there are just some things you're not going to be able to stop yourself from doing. Okay? If you get into the motion of tackling and you collide with somebody else helmet to helmet, if you started it midair, why would you believe that you could instantly stop? Seems ridiculous to me. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. Before we continue on any further, got to talk about the platforms, where you can find us, where it is that you can reach us. Okay? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. These are the key places that you can find us and reach us. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We are the first thing that comes up. I promise. I promise. And, of course, if you'd like to listen to us, because we've all been there, the driveway moments where you get into the car, you're listening to David Tulis. He's about to make a fantastic point, but also you're late for dinner and you want to get into the house, okay? You want to get to the house. How do you do that? How do you listen to Hot News Talk Radio and go wherever you want to? The solution is simple. TuneIn Radio. Get the TuneIn Radio app in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. Download it to your mobile device. And then give us a follow. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow, press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. And, of course, you can just stream us online on your computer or your tablet at hotnewstalkradio.com. So I'm looking at Barry Sanders. His son is transferring to Oklahoma State, and I'm excited about that. And I'm also not excited about that. It's not that the Big 12 needed any more scary fast people. I'm a Texas fan, and so if he was transferring to to a place that's not Texas does not make me happy if you're going to enter the Big 12. But Texas has been down on talent. So that's why I would say that. Texas has been down on talent lately. They haven't had the same depth of talent that you're used to seeing from Texas, which is crazy to me because they can still more or less recruit whoever they want to. They're Texas. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because they only had one player invited to the NFL Combine. From their number 2 ranked class in 2012, one player will be representing the University of Texas at the Combine, which is, kind of insane, Conversely, the players representing Alabama at the Combine, 9. Not that Alabama, needed any more help. 9 players, okay? Including Derrick Henry and Reggie Ragland and others, right? Georgia's got 6. And that's interesting. Oh, by the way, Jake Coker from Alabama, not invited to the Combine, not invited to the NFL Combine, so he's going to have to prove himself on his pro day at Alabama later on. The NFL Combine is coming up in March. I like to watch it. It's around my birthday, so I usually just shut it down and do nothing and just watch the Combine, also known as the Underwear Olympics. Because, you can learn stuff from the Combine. I don't think it's fair to say that you can't learn stuff from the Combine. Like, I watched Cam Newton at the Combine, and what I learned was this guy's real fast. If he could just fix that throwing thing, he's going to continue to be real fast. And it's not like you couldn't have learned that from watching film, but just watching the 40-yard dash, Cam was hitting 20 miles an hour, and you're just like, man, okay. It's not like he was just fast on tape. He's real life fast. That's an actual, you see him running a straight line, bam. Then on top of that, he had all the moves to boot. But it was, it's interesting that Texas only got one player from their number 2 ranked class going to the Combine. Crazy. Okay. And it's going to be hard to look at the draft and in the first round, because the NFL does their first round of their draft now, and they do it separate from the rest of the draft. So Thursday is the first round of the draft. How many Ohio State guys do you think are going? Because that whole team is basically entering the draft, all of them, right? So I'm interested in the Buckeyes this upcoming season because I don't know how they replace all of that. There's going to be a lot of freshmen, true freshmen, and redshirt freshmen starting for them. I don't know how well they're going to fare with that. Obviously, they're Ohio State. They're going to get the talent that they want. But I'm interested in seeing how they're going to replace all the talent that they're losing, because they were the school that had their pick of whatever quarterback they wanted. They could have gone with Barrett. They could have gone with Jones. They could have gone with Miller at a point. In the year that they won the national title, they did just that. They went with all 3 guys ultimately because of injury and various things. So I'm looking at Ohio State and I'm like, man, how do you replace all the talent that they had? Because that was a ton. And we're going to look at an NFL draft where potentially, because everybody's in love with Braxton Miller, it's hard not to be in love with Cardale Jones's arm because it's a howitzer. His arm is in actuality a cannon just attached to a human being. It's hard to not look at that stuff and fall in love with that, especially when you look at a guy like Cam Newton who developed into a good enough passer on top of his athletic ability. And then you add into combination with that the strong arm to be able to lead a team to a Super Bowl. And Cardale Jones, he's not Cam Newton fast or anything, but he's got enough mobility, and the arm is strong. And it's like he can throw off his back foot, and he's still throwing with power and accuracy that doesn't make any sense. So that's crazy to me. All of that. How do you replace that? That's going to be more difficult to replace than, say, what Alabama's got to replace, which is, a quarterback that can run their offense, which when it's bad for them, it's real bad, because Alabama, the knock on them is that they don't produce quarterbacks ever. Joe Namath is really the guy there holding up the banner for Alabama quarterbacks. And when you've got to go all the way back to Broadway Joe for the guy holding up the banner for Alabama quarterbacks, well, that doesn't say a lot of good things about your organization, about where you stand with quarterbacks in particular. It doesn't say a ton of good things. Okay, so Alabama just needs a functioning quarterback, a guy with a pulse that can run their offense. I thought Coker was really good this year, and I'm going to be interested in seeing what he gets from his pro day, because I thought during the regular season and in the national title game, in the SEC title game even, he was electric. I really, really liked the way that he played, but what I want to know is how much of that is Jake Coker being a good quarterback, and how much of that is you've got the beast Derrick Henry in the backfield, and you just turn around and hand it to him. Defenses are so afraid of that guy. They're loading the box. You're throwing into one-on-one coverage, or even better, to wide open guys. Okay, that play action fake kills. It kills, because you have to respect Derrick Henry, and you have to respect him because when he's running, he's gaining a ton of yards, and he's running a lot. Okay, you know what the game plan is. They're going to turn around and hand it to this guy 30, 40 times a game. And you're looking at NFL teams, and are they worried about Derrick Henry? And I am meandering a little bit, but seriously, are you worried about Derrick Henry and the load that this guy has taken? He's run more than NFL reps in college. He's taken a pounding already. Running backs do not have a long shelf life, okay? By the nature of that position, by the fact that you are taking the football and willingly running into very large people who want to hurt you and doing it again and again and again, by the nature of that position, is how much does Derrick Henry actually have left? Okay, enough to make a good NFL career, but if you're a team and you're looking at Derrick Henry, maybe you like more of the Todd Gurley situation where Gurley got suspended, or a situation where, in Tennessee, like a guy like Jalen Hurd next year could draw attention. And hey, he's splitting time with another back. Derrick Henry didn't split time with anybody. He was a workhorse. Well, I'm an NFL team looking for a guy to be my workhorse, and I'm going, okay, Derrick Henry's got a ton of mileage on him already. Okay, now to be fair, he's running against, smaller guys, all these things, but he's got a ton of mileage already. And when you're a running back, every carry that you don't take helps you going forward, helps you in going to the NFL. To the point where a lot of people have said about Leonard Fournette, hey, Leonard Fournette has got nothing to prove. He's got nothing to prove. He is a monster. He's got nothing to prove. Leonard Fournette ate Auburn's defense. He ate them. He ate 3 guys. Okay, they're still missing to this day. We have no idea where they are. He just ate 3 dudes on his way to the end zone. And that play there proved to me and to a lot of other people, yeah, he doesn't need to be in college anymore. That guy could go straight to the NFL, and he'll be fine. He'll be all right, okay? Because he ate 3 dudes on his way to the end zone, and we don't know where they went. It's like an urban legend. They're still missing. They were just never seen or heard from again. Leonard Fournette, if he sat out the rest of this season, which would just stink, and I would hate for that to happen because, you want to see guys compete. I know you're not getting paid, but I mean, you still like to see guys compete. And that would set such a terrible precedent too, by the way. By sitting out for the rest of the season, by not putting the mileage on himself and by not risking injury, he would actually help his draft stock probably. You know, you maybe want to see Leonard Fournette play the 3 games that LSU is going to play that don't mean anything. You know, 3 of the Little Sisters of the Poor, beat up on those schools, and then just sit it out for the rest of the season. Just seriously, just shut it down. And we're going to look at Leonard Fournette tape and go, you know what? Yeah, I'd still take him. I'd still take that guy because he was so dominant. He was so dominant last season. And you almost wish that could have happened for Derrick Henry, where he got to be dominant without being the offense. But that was not the way that Alabama chose to play this. That wasn't the way that they chose to run it. And he was the offense, but he was the offense to such a monumental degree that on sheer volume, okay, we're not even talking about just yards acquired. We're not talking about touchdowns scored, which he did brilliantly in the red zone. He did brilliantly in terms of yards per carry. He's above 6.5 yards a carry, I think. He did brilliantly, okay? But if we're just going on sheer volume, like they turned around and gave this guy the ball 40 times in the SEC title game, which you don't see happen in college. We're spreading people out. We're passing the ball more. And then there's Alabama just give it to Derrick Henry. Give it to Derrick Henry. Give it to Derrick Henry. Just on sheer volume, he should have won the Heisman. Yeah, I understand. Talent, skill, yada, yada, yada. Just on volume, that they just kept turning it around and giving it to this guy, he should have won the Heisman. That shouldn't even have been close. Okay, and there was a point there where we were like, okay, maybe it's Leonard Fournette. It's Leonard Fournette. But ultimately, Derrick Henry proved that, like, the workhorse, you don't see that in college football anymore, which, by the way, the last however many Heisman Trophy winners before that were all quarterbacks. That's what it takes for a running back to win the Heisman Trophy in the modern era. 40 carries a game. Okay? He's got to carry the ball 1 million times to win the Heisman. That's the only way to do it anymore, which is insane. It is, you can't win the Heisman on 20 carries a game, which is still high, by the way, for our modern spread offense college football. That's still on the higher side of things. If you're in the mid-20s, you can't win the Heisman on 20 to 25 carries a game. Can't do it. This has been Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. That's me. Thank you so much for joining me today, giving me just a little sliver of your time. I definitely appreciate you. And remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Always stay clutch. This is the last show of the week, and I will see you again next week. We have guests for NASCAR and NBA. We're talking Hawks and Braves.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Sabrina with Sabrina Realty Associates. Now is a great time to